What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Chuds BBQ. My name is Bradley Robinson, and today I'm going to show you how I made these. Beautiful, delicious, smoky, tender, crispy, juicy, amazing smoked barbacoa tacos with some Diablo sauce and some guacamole on some homemade beef fat flour tortillas, smoked on the pellet grill. Coming up. This is some meat. Pat it dry. And what I got here is some beef cheek meat, all the trimmings from my previous how to cook beef cheeks on a pellet grill video. And whenever I buy beef cheek meat from the grocery store, it comes in a pack about that big. And in that pack, there's maybe 1 or 2 actual beef cheeks. And the rest of it is all this stuff, the scraps and the scraggly bits hanging off. And it's a pretty bad yield, honestly. Out of one of those packs, it's probably 60% scrap to 40% actual beef cheeks. And in my beef cheek video, I talked about that, got them all trimmed up. And I said, you can use these scraps to make barbacoa. And I've showed that process several times on this channel, but I still had people in that video saying that they wanted to see how it's done. And I also saw a lot of people in the comment section saying that they just throw this away, which is a terrible idea because it's the exact same price as beef cheeks. And when cooked properly, it's incredibly delicious and it's a really easy cook to do. So because I have all these scraps on hand and I need to cook it down into barbacoa anyway, I figured let's film it. So that's what we're gonna do today. We're gonna make some barbacoa tacos on the old pellet grill. And when looking at this stuff, it is understandable why people would throw this away because it's pretty gnarly looking, a lot of fat and a lot of connective tissue. Like this is all just really gnarly stuff, but there is a lot of good meat in here. You know, we got some big chunks like this. This is actually the same cut as the beef cheek, but they just kind of sliced it in half, so that's a really thin piece of meat. But in a very similar cooking process to beef cheeks, cooked low and slow, all this fat will render, all that connective tissue will break down and become nice and tender. And then we can strain all the fat out and be left with some absolutely fantastic barbacoa, which is one of my favorite meats. I always have it on hand. Eat it all the time. But before we go ahead and throw this on the pit, we need to get it seasoned up, so I'm going down with some good old-fashioned Chuds BBQ SPG. But you can use whatever kind of rubs you like. Honestly, you don't need to put any rubs on it at all because we can always season it up at the end when we're mixing it anyway. But I might as well get started building those layers of flavor and get that smoked peppery vibe that barbecue is known for. Again, not being too precise about any of this, just kind of getting it on there, tossing it around, nice even coating. So much of this fat will render out that I don't really think you can over season this, but you know, don't go too crazy. My mom absolutely hates the way this looks. She always brings it up whenever I do a barbacoa video or a beef cheek video. She's like, Bradley, that looks disgusting. I'm like, yep, sure does, but it cooks up really great. And obviously you can do this whole process without butchering out the cheeks and get an even meatier barbacoa. So if you're not after beef cheeks and you want to make barb, just open the pack, throw some rub on it, and throw it right on the pit. Not too concerned about these big chunks or anything like that. You could cut it down if you wanted to, but I've never had a problem with throwing it on in chunk form like this. And just like that, all seasoned up. So let's go ahead and fire up the pit. Boop. And on the pit we go. Just a nice big pile. Well, not really, I'm gonna spread it out a little bit to make sure we get smoke on every little piece. But again, this is probably the most forgiving cook in all of barbecue, so you really can't mess this up. I'm also gonna go in with a smoke tube today, just for a little extra smoky flavor. Make sure we get some nice dark color, good bark, and extra smokiness on this barb. Beautiful, and we can shut it down. So the game plan for this cook is incredibly simple. It's very similar to the beef cheek video. I got that pit set to 180 degrees for a nice low and slow, super smoky cook. Obviously we got the smoke tube in there for some more smoke as well. But 180 on that pellet grill is a lot closer to 225 on that upper rack, which is a really good place to cook anything. Per usual, going in with the Smokin' pecan shell pellets, my pellet of choice. And if you've been watching any of the pellet grill series so far, you're probably sick of hearing me talk about these, but these are my favorite pellet that I've used. And every time I don't mention what pellet I use, people yell at me in the comment section. So Smokin' pecan, and if you do want to try these, you can use my link in the description box of this video. Gives me a little kickback, so I appreciate that. And from here, we're just gonna let them cook for probably 3-4 hours. It's really up to you how smoky you want them, but we're not really trying to get to an internal temp or anything like that. We're just trying to get some flavor, some smoke, build a little bark, and cook that stuff through. So that could be an hour and a half, that could be 8 hours if you really wanted it super smoky, but we don't want to go too long and burn it. So I'm probably gonna give it about 4 hours at 180, and we'll check back in when it's nice and smoky and fully cooked. 4 hours later, let's take a look at this barbacoa, shall we? Still plenty of smoke coming out of here, and that is looking absolutely beautiful. Nice and crispy, good amount of color on there, nice and smoky, probably really tough still. And that's exactly what we are after, those little crispy edges. And it looks like really bad barbecue at this point. So now off the pit this comes. Oh yeah, look at that. Looks sparky, super tough still though, even though it's probably 200 degrees internal. It's like barbecue fried chicken with all the craggles. Pretty weird. Boop. And at this point, there are several ways to go about finishing off this barbacoa. Just like the beef cheeks, they're fully cooked through, smoked and seasoned, but they're still incredibly tough. And in that video, I take them and I put them in confit in a hotel pan, cover the top, and I popped it in the oven for like 4 hours, and you could do that as well. But because this is a little bit more forgiving, because you really can't overcook it, you got some more options. I've done it before in sous vide, where I'll bag it up, throw a dollop of beef fat in there, sous vide at 180 overnight, but you could also do the exact same method we just talked about like I did in the beef cheek video. But usually what I do when it comes to barbacoa is bust out the old crock pot slow cooker. You can fit a good amount of barb in there too. So what I'm gonna do is grab some beef tallow. Don't need too much, maybe a cup or two. The more, the merrier. This is the same tallow I used in the beef cheek episode. You can probably use this maybe 2-3 times. It starts to get a little peppery and smoky after a while, but I'll just go in with all of it, why not? And we're gonna let this confit for a good long time. So lid goes on and we're gonna keep this on low. And you probably could get away with just 4 or 5 hours on low in this thing, but I'm gonna let it go overnight. That's what I usually do. And again, I've never had any problems with over confit barbacoa because we're trying to get this as tender as humanly possible. And there's still a lot of fat in there that needs to render down, and that meat needs to soak up all that fat and cook down and get nice and tender and shreddable. So I'm gonna leave this out here overnight so we don't stink up the house. Set on low the entire time, and we'll check back in on this tomorrow. This video is brought to you by DoorDash. With DoorDash, you can have almost anything in your local neighborhood delivered right to your door. Whether that's food, flowers, groceries, retail items, pretty much whatever you may need. DoorDash makes life easier and saves you money. Dash Pass is an exclusive membership from DoorDash that gets you unlimited $0 delivery fees on eligible orders, and members-only exclusive deals and items. Dash Pass is the most affordable way to get anything you need delivered right to your door. It pays for itself in 2 orders on average, because members on average save about $5 per order. Pause or cancel anytime, no commitment, easy cancellation, and you can try it risk-free for 30 days for new members. And I gotta tell you, DoorDash comes in super handy around these parts. There's many times where I find myself with a lit fire here in the backyard, and I don't want to leave the house, but I run out of a specific ingredient for a recipe, or I just want to get some lunch or something like that. So getting ingredients or lunch delivered right to the house is very handy. And with Dash Pass, it's actually pretty affordable too. Get more from delivery for less with Dash Pass. $0 delivery fees and reduced service fees on eligible DoorDash orders. Use my code Chuds BBQ 50 or scan the QR code on screen now and sign up for Dash Pass today. And get your first 30 days for free if you're a new member. Subject to change, terms apply. Thank you, DoorDash. Next up, let's go ahead and bust out some beef fat flour tortillas. Starting with going into our food processor with some bread flour, some baking powder, and some kosher salt. And get that all mixed up. And then in with some Wagyu beef tallow. And get that cut in. And then while it runs, we're gonna go in with some warm water. And let that knead for a minute or 2. And then out it comes. Get that pesky blade out of there. And we're gonna give this just a few more kneads to make sure it is nice and smooth, but it's very high fat dough, so very easy to work with. And just like that, a nice smooth top dough. So now we're gonna portion this out into some tortillas. I'm gonna go a little smaller today. I'm thinking around 20 grams each. Yeah, we'll make it 30. And once all portioned out, we're simply going to tuck all the seams to the underside, again, to give us a nice smooth topped dough ball. Pinching all the seams shut, and then give it the old table roll so it's nice and tight and nice and round, like that. And once all balled up and rolled out, I'm gonna pop them into this container and throw the lid on there and set these aside for a little bit, just to give time for that flour to hydrate and that gluten to relax, because if we tried to press these right now, they'd get really elastic and probably not stretch out to their full potential and kind of shrink back up on us. But by letting them rest for a little bit, it'll ensure we get a nice fluffy tortilla. I'd say 30 minutes minimum. Probably an hour is better. And you can load up your barbacoa tacos with whatever you like, but today I'm feeling like some guacamole and some hot sauce, so let's knock out a quick guac. Starting with 4 avocados, some diced white onion, some Roma tomatoes, diced up jalapeno, big, fat pinch of salt, some freshly cracked black pepper, some lime juice, a little bit of cumin, a little bit of ancho powder, and of course, some cilantro. And get in there and get it all mashed up. And as always, be sure to taste and adjust, and our super simple guac is done. I'm also gonna get a mix of some onions and cilantro going, because that always goes great on the top of some tacos. Going with a nice pinch of salt and a little lime juice as well. And get that all mixed up. And as for a sauce today, I was thinking about going the salsa route, like making a verde or a roja or something like that, but I wanted something with a little bit more kick, so we're gonna make my version of Tortillas Diablo Sauce. Starting by going into a pot with some oil. Any oil will work. This is avocado oil. And let that get nice and toasty. And once nice and hot, we're gonna go in with a whole bunch of whole habaneros. And let those start cooking down and softening up and getting a little bit of color on them. And after about 10 minutes of simmering away in the hot oil, these have wilted down and are taking on some lovely color and smelling quite nice. Although I am glad I'm doing this outside. But now we're gonna go in with some other ingredients, including our onions, just diced white onion. And we'll give that another 5 minutes or so to caramelize down. And once those onions have cooked off most of their water and they're starting to look beautiful and golden brown, now we're gonna go in with our garlic, and cook that for just a minute or so to take the raw edge off and soften up, but we don't want to burn it. And when everything is looking nicely browned, in we go with some tomato sauce. And this is 3 cups, or 3 of those little 8-ounce cans, followed by some white vinegar and some kosher salt. And bring this back up to a simmer. And now we're gonna simmer this down for probably about 10-15 minutes just to thicken up a little bit and get all these flavors combined, and let it reduce down for a little bit. And after simmering down for about 15 minutes, looking a little bit thicker, and all those peppers are starting to dissolve into the sauce. So now all we gotta do is finish it off by busting out the old immersion blender and getting everything buzzed up, and all that oil will kind of emulsify in, and it should turn a nice orange color. And just like that, all nice and smooth and looking fantastic. And just like that, our Diablo sauce is done. And I just tasted it and it is fantastic. Nice and fruity, good amount of acid to it. Definitely got a kick, but nothing too unbearable. Beautiful. And now that our tortilla dough has been rising for a good long while, it's time to press them out on the good old Chud press. Got the old Chud press sitting on a propane burner over here. The temp on it is right around 350 degrees. So we're simply gonna grab ourselves an adorable little well-rested dough ball, plop it right in the middle, and give it a press. Little taco squeal in there. And after just a couple of seconds, nicely pressed out, go ahead and give it a flip. We got ourselves a beautiful beef fat flour tortilla. Just look at it, folks. It's so smooth. I probably should have gone 20 grams on that. That's still a pretty big tortilla, but it'll be just fine. Not really aiming for street tacos or anything like that. Oh, nice and fatty though. Got some nice air bubbles in there as well. Just flip this a couple of times to make sure everything is set. And I did make a mistake by putting all the dough balls in here, because this is my tortilla warmer slash steamer, but with all the balls in there, I can't be putting these in there. So I got this other vessel over here, which I probably should have put the balls in, but either way, beautiful looking tort. Let those steam away while we repeat the process. Little tortilla whispers. Oh, yeah, nice and poofy. It's been a minute since I made some flour tortillas. Pretty fun little process too. And just like that, all pressed out a beautiful stack of some lovely, freshly made flour tortillas. I made some bigger ones too. These are really hot. Ow. But we're gonna let them steam in this warmer and keep warm, and that steam is really gonna help soften them up while we check back in on that barbacoa. This barb has been simmering away for the last like 15, 20 hours or something like that. I checked it last night pretty late. It was like 2 in the morning, and it was still pretty tough, and that was like 6 hours in. And then I checked it this morning around 8 or 9, and it was incredibly tender, and I've just let it rock ever since then because it's just gonna get even more tender. And last night it was poking out above that fat line, but as you can see, it all wilted down and melted and is now completely submerged. So now we gotta strain it. So I'm just gonna try and grab it, even though it wants to fall apart. Incredibly tender, just a little shake would break this stuff apart. Let some of the fat drain off and into this colander situation I've got, which is, look at that. Oh yeah, nice and tender. And it was bubbling away. It was cooking at like 205, 210 degrees, but nothing is crispy or deep fried, which is a good thing. Ooh, and it smells really good. And at this point, it's obviously incredibly greasy, so that's why we're gonna let it sit in this perforated pan here for a bit to let a lot of that fat drain off, because we don't want this to be too greasy. And at this point, texture is completely up to you. I like to go ahead and give it a good little mix, break apart any big fat globs that might still be in there. But you can leave it chunky if you like. You can bring it out and chop it up if you want, or you can just kind of mix it and get it all pulled. Kind of like pulled pork. And a nifty little trick if you want it super fine is to bust out the old beater. Makes quick work pulling this stuff apart. And just like that, all strained out, we've got ourselves some beautiful, sticky, smoky, super meaty beef cheek barbacoa. And at this point, you can taste it and adjust for seasonings or salt or anything like that. And I should mention, you can get really creative with that overnight confit process if you want. You know, throw some onions in there, garlic, jalapeno, throw a cinnamon stick in there if you like. We went pretty simple with this one, but if you want to make a cheap birria situation, you know, you can throw some chilies or some cinnamon cloves in there. So really whatever flavor profile you're after. Now we could easily make some barbacoa tacos with this as is, but I want to add a little bit more texture. So let's go ahead and fire up the pit. Got the big old cast iron griddle in there. Haven't fired this thing up yet, so we'll let that burn out for the last 30 minutes or so. Hit it with some spray oil to make sure it is nicely seasoned. But I will say, kind of hard to see in this light, but that is a big old cast iron skillet. Yet again, making this grill even more versatile. But we're gonna grab some of our lovely barbacoa here and throw it right on the old flat top. All the extra fat in there will help crisp this up. And like I said, you don't have to do this step. I usually don't, but I think adding a little crunchiness and crispiness, kind of carnitas style, will help add some heterogeneity to this taco and extra flavor. And again, I'm not trying to get every little piece crispy, just some of it. So we have a little soft texture and some crunch in there. And I apologize, the light is awful right now. And also, if you don't like a super greasy barbacoa, this is a great way to do it because a lot of that fat is gonna kind of run out. Just gonna let it kind of fry on one side for a bit, kind of like a chopped cheese. And then we'll go through and chop it all together. This is also a great thing to do with leftover barbacoa. You know, pull it straight from the fridge and throw it into a pan. Oh yeah, looking nice and crispy, nice and bubbly. And just like that, after about 5-10 minutes, again, you can make this as crispy as you like, but that is looking pretty much perfect to me. Give it one more final chop up. And off it comes. Oh good, as soon as I get it all off, the lighting changes. That's just great. But yeah, looking very nice. Very hot. Might as well tallow fry some tortillas while we're here. And finally, it's time to assemble some tacos, starting with our beautiful beef fat flour tortilla, to which we're gonna go down with a nice little scoop of our guacamole, followed by a lovely pinch of our crispy barbacoa, a drizzle of our Diablo sauce, and then some onion cilantro right on top. Very simple taco, but it's got all the elements, you know what I mean? What a beautiful bite. Let's make another one. I was pretty close to putting this in a food processor to make it really smooth, but I decided to go with somewhat chunky. But let me know in the comment section down below what you would put on a barbacoa taco. Because traditionally I'm just like a salsa verde and onions kind of guy, but this is looking pretty good to me. Love the consistency on that Diablo sauce too. Oh, beautiful. And there we have it, folks. Some beautiful, beefy, smoky, tender, slightly crispy barbacoa tacos on some beef fat flour tortillas with our Diablo sauce and our guacamole. Let's dive in. Not gonna lie, I haven't had a beefy taco in a while, so I'm pretty excited for this one. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. What's not to like there, folks? That's fantastic. For how few ingredients there are, there's a lot of flavor going on, you know? Definitely picking up on that smoky beef. The little crispy edges of the barbacoa is a very nice touch. You can't go wrong with a freshly made flour tortilla. That sauce packs a punch, but a lot of brightness as well, which is really nice. Does have some heat to it though, that's a builder for sure. And then you got that creamy guac for some extra texture in there, and yeah, that's a solid bite of food. So meaty. The sauce is unbelievable. This is definitely one of those tacos that you eat like 5 or 6 of. I love barbacoa so much. Brooke,
yes.
Would you like a barbacoa taco?
Yes.
It's been a minute.
It has been a minute. This looks a little bit like a suadero.
I was very close to putting some salsa macha on this and just leaning into the suadero vibe, but I already made that video.
Yeah, true. This looks really flavorful and colorful, which I like.
Simple, but there's some nice colors to it.
Oh, that is really good. The guac is really adding a nice brightness.
Gotta love the texture of guac in a taco too.
Yeah.
Just sets the foundation.
And then the onions are giving a nice texture. Yeah.
I like Taco Tuesdays.
Yep.
Or Taco Thursdays, even though today is technically Friday.
Today's Friday.
How's the heat level?
It's pretty spicy, but I like it.
It's the, I made the Tortillas Diablo sauce.
Yeah. If you have an aversion to a little bit of a kick, this would be a lot for you, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
It's kind of,
I like it.
yeah, it's kind of right at my max, where I'm not running for a beer or anything, but it's definitely keeping me on my tippies. You see these new bowls I got?
And a cute little ramekin.
Aren't they adorable? Exclusively for thumbnails. I like the size of these too. They're not quite street taco, but they're not full size either.
I could eat 3 and not feel like a total FA. That's delicious.
Yep.
I can't decide if I should go in for another. I'm going to take a really long walk.
Yeah, you need the fuel. That heat is building though. And I didn't put that much sauce on there either, so tread lightly. Ooh, a little extra guac. There you go. Gotta have that creamy factor. It's been a while since I made you a taco that you didn't say you wanted to add hot sauce or jalapenos to.
That is true. Definitely got some heat in the best way. A little bit of heat.
But it works and it's flavorful.
Does the barbacoa have any heat? Okay.
There's some jalapeno in the guac. Everything else is coming straight from the sauce, which is made with a whole bunch of 10 habaneros.
Yeah. Judging by how orange it is, I had a suspicion.
All right, I'll make you 10 more.
Good. Yep.
Well, before I eat probably 17 of these off camera, I think it's time for the onion and hot sauce free version of the official taste test. Oh, All right, y'all, and that is it. That's how to make some absolutely fantastic smoky barbacoa tacos on the pellet grill. I highly recommend giving this one a try. It really is the best taco meat, and that's kind of the beauty of buying beef cheeks. Is that you get two cuts out of it. You know, you got your sliced beef cheeks, which go great on any sandwich or barbecue tray, and then with all the trimming, you got some really good barbacoa, which again is perfect in tacos. And I said it earlier, but I've always got some barbacoa vac sealed in my freezer because it sous vides back to life better than any other cut. Or you could take it straight from fridge to flat top and cook it like we did today for some amazing tacos, sandwiches, or whatever you like. And definitely something I'll be making again very soon. But all that being said, if you enjoyed this video, let me know by hitting that subscribe button. Let YouTube know by dropping a like on this video. If you give this recipe a try for yourself, be sure to tag me on Instagram at Chuds BBQ. I'd love to see what y'all are cooking. Big shout out to all the Team Chud members. Thank you for supporting this channel and allowing me to keep making all these videos. And until the next time I see you, please go cook something outside. Peace!